All right, folks, now it's time for our small business spotlight. Here is a familiar name. We interviewed a couple of weeks ago about a Arkansas legislature issue. We've got Mr. Wendell Stratton on the phone. Wendell is from Stratton Seed Company. Welcome back, sir.
Well, thank you, Paul. It's a pleasure to be back with you.
So, first of all, I guess since we've talked, on the program, the segment that we did on that, the plant board and, some people in the government trying to make changes, that seemed to, shortly after the interview, it kind of seemed to die down and the bill didn't go anywhere after that.
That's correct. After that happened on a Friday, I think we interviewed late that afternoon, and again, they brought it back up on Monday and worked hard over the weekend and were able to secure some more votes. But at that point, realizing that we didn't trust them because they said on Friday that they would drop it, but they didn't. So we continued to work it the following week. I actually talked to several personally that said, we made a commitment to support the governor in this, but we're going back to Douglas, the bill sponsor, and pull that support. And I think as that happened a few times, they decided they better just pull it and let it go.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what they decided as well. And I really, there's really no other industry in the state like the industry of agriculture. And you guys know how to farm. You guys know what's and I think the government, they wanted in on some of the action maybe, and I think you guys pushed back. I think the majority of folks in your industry said, no, we don't want this growth of government. We don't want these new powers. We want to be left alone and clear of politics.
Absolutely. And, Paul, in that process, I had the thought, I know people run for office with good intentions, but I think sometimes they lose perspective of what's real and what's best for the people in that process. And that was somewhat discouraging to me as we talked to some of the people there in the House and their reasons for doing it, and they would make a decision without really considering our input, and that bothers me. As an elected official, you should search for the facts and make a conscious decision. But I'm afraid today that too many times it's all political, and it's not really what's best for the people.
Yeah, and I've heard that from other industries as well about what's going on right now in Arkansas. But I appreciate you being willing to come on and talk about that, because I really think it gave the information to maybe people who weren't aware of exact, because they went through something like 2,000 bills, Wendell, and so some of these guys they just go by what they hear their colleague tell them a bill's going to do, and they're not actually hearing from people like you or people in that industry. And so sometimes these interviews, they really help shed a light on things. So I just am glad that you came on the program.
Well, again, I appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate what you do in your program.
All right, so our small business spotlight, you guys know this. Wendell, I know you know as well, but we're just trying to highlight an Arkansas small business, Stratton Seed Company. What's your background? I mean, I know it's a family business, but just tell us kind of what led to you being involved in this industry.
Well, as a kid growing up, Dad purchased this business on February 2nd, 1948, 8 days before I arrived. And as a kid growing up at home, I saw his work ethic. I knew how much time and effort he gave to the business. And, as a kid growing up in his household, it's all I ever wanted to do. Dad was very wise in trying to get me to go to work elsewhere after I graduated from college. But I never seriously considered it because it's always what I personally thought I wanted to do. And joined the company in 1970. At that time, of course, he had been in business 22 years. We were in need of some new facilities and some upgrades, and he recognized that in the fact that I made a career choice to be here, and we built a new seed plant in 73, 74. And as we grew the business in the 70s and 80s and 90s, as we had opportunities from other ag businesses to partner with them and accomplish things that helped them, it allowed our company to grow to the size that it is today.
Wow.
We have had probably as many as 110 employees. Currently, we're running at 93, just to give you an overall feel of it.
That's a lot of jobs, and that's where the backbone of jobs are in this state, is with small business owners. That's great.
That's correct. Have a location or 3 locations here in Stuttgart and 1 in Carlisle. Our business consists of really 3 different business segments. One is seed production and processing. Another is seed marketing, that we market pretty well in the southeast quadrant of the U.S. And then the other portion of our business is a retail business with our grower customers that we provide crop consulting services, seed, fertilizer, chemicals to our farmers that help produce the seed that we, of course, bring back and process and distribute to a dealer network.
Wow. That sounds like a lot. That sounds like a lot of stuff. And it sounds like you really pushed the business. I mean, like you said, you went to work for the company in the 70s. So you kind of oversaw a lot of this growth. Is that right?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
And actually worked for my father 11 years until he had a heart attack, and at that point I took over leading the company.
So has being over all of this growth, would you consider that something that has been an easy process?
Absolutely not. I think anybody in business today will testify to the fact that nothing's easy. There's hard work involved, and of course, we've had a host of good, solid people that have worked alongside with us to help grow the company to what it is. And this isn't something that just my father did or I have done or my son as he leads the company today. It's a combination of the people here, and of course, we're driven by providing the best goods and services to our customer, whether it's that dealer in Georgia or whether it's the good friend that's a farmer right here in Stuttgart.
Wow. So what are some of have you had any obstacles, during this time? I mean, and what are some of the biggest ones maybe that you've had to overcome? I mean, I talk to a lot of business owners, and it's always about, hey, we just got to persevere through this. Yes.
The thing that in preparation for this call, I got together with our staff, and we talked about the time and effort that they spend today in regulatory issues, because over time, again, our government decides that this is something else we need to do to protect the public. And we in business are the ones that pay the price to do that. Now, I'm not saying that some of those things aren't needed, but my goodness, as I look at it, the cost involved today for us to operate is astronomical. 15 years ago, we very seldom needed an attorney. But today, we have over 8 attorneys that we go to in specific areas when we have a concern. We used to just agree to things over the phone and transact business and do things. Today, even to plant plot seed for a university or someone else, there's a contract involved. And there's a time factor in doing all of that we didn't used to have.
Wow.
And the other thing that has come to light is the fact that we hire people today to make sure that we're in compliance with all the regulations that are out there. And frankly, I was surprised to find we're spending over $20,000 a year as a company just to make sure that we're in compliance. That doesn't even include the cost of compliance.
Wow. So the $20,000 is just to make sure you are in compliance. It doesn't actually include the cost of having to meet all of the rules and the regulations. That's immense. That sounds pretty burdensome.
Well, not only that, as I sat down with employees a while ago and talked about, my question to them was, tell me how much of your time are you dealing today with regulatory issues about our company and our business and our people instead of working for the business or working for the customer? And I was just amazed. I'll just go right down the line. One was 50%, another was 40%, another 25%. One of our major leaders in the company, 50%. Even staff people on my immediate staff, every one of them spend a percentage of their time up to 10%. And, Paul, that's ridiculous. That is taking their time away from what we're in business for.
Yeah.
And I realize it's all caused by government thinking that, you know, we need this law or we need this law or we need business to do this or we need business to do that to protect everybody. And while I cannot disagree with that, who pays the price for each of these laws and all of these regulations? It's the honest, hardworking business owner that didn't do it wrong in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly right. They didn't do it wrong in the first place. Maybe somebody somewhere along the line, you know, at another company or industry made a mistake, and so then now everybody's got to pay. Now we can't trust any of them. And, you know, it really comes down to time is money. Because, they're wasting all this time doing this because the government says so. And, you know, then the company could be making profits elsewhere, could be generating revenue that would go to create even more jobs. And then those jobs are obviously going to increase tax revenue to the government. And it's unfortunate that we have overburdened. And we're talking with Wendell Stratton. He's from Stratton Seed Company out of Stuttgart. And you're not the only one, Wendell, in your industry that feels this way. And then there are other industries, that suffer the same way from the government. And you said, trying to watch out for the public safety. And in some cases, that is their role. But we have, in my opinion, I feel like this is all done out of eliminating risk, and I feel like there's some who believe that we can eliminate risk entirely. And I think if they ever succeeded in that, they would eliminate all achievement.
I would concur. Good intent, and most of this is at the federal level, but that trickles down to the state level to, in many cases, to make sure that you're in compliance. But for your listeners, too, in all fairness, I probably should mention the fact that as an ag business, we have the typical OSHA regulation that most any business will have today, but we'll also have overreach from the EPA because of the chemicals and things that we do in that area. And many of the concerns of why we have extensive contracts today. I mean, there was one example given that 2 years ago we had a little simple 4-page contract that today is 16.
Wow.
And that's just in 2 years from the same company.
So it goes from 4 to 16 in 2 years. Why? I mean, what changed?
Because of that company's concern that they might not have all their bases covered.
Mm-hmm.
Paul, we're so concerned today, and that's the reason we've hired these two companies, basically in two different segments of our business, to work with our people to make sure that we're in compliance. Because with the regs today, if we were out of compliance in an area and even didn't know it, and it wasn't a flagrant disregard for the law, we still could have a significant penalty and a charge and bad PR. So we have hired these people to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to do. And it's so complex anymore. Our OSHA reg book is probably 2 inches thick. And then that applies differently to different segments of our business. And to expect all of our managers in each area to know and be in compliance, I mean, that's a huge undertaking.
I was just thinking to myself that some of these folks in the government could claim they're creating jobs, but they're creating positions for compliance officers. That's not exactly what you guys are looking for.
No, but in that you're exactly right. And I'll even give you an example here. Several years ago, we had the rice industry invited some people from the EPA here, and we spent some time with them here at our office. And one of the things that we have to do today, due to the chemicals that we treat with in seed treatments, we literally have to have our employees in a coverall type suit to make sure that they're protected. Now, these chemicals are not that obtrusive. I mean, it's not that they're that dangerous, but yet we have a regulation, and it may be 90 degrees, and our employees having to wear this, and he can get overheated, but they make regulation of this is what you have to do if you treat with that chemical. As they came to our office, I had one of our people put it on and bring it into the room as we were visiting with them. And I asked them, I said, can you all explain to me why this is what we have to do in this particular process today? And they said, well, that's just the law and the way it's written. I said, yes, but let's talk about the practical application of what you all do. And I tell you, that's what it took for them really to get it. Mm-hmm. Because they sit there in their offices in Washington and they think up things that we have to deal with. On another example of that, when we left the office that day, it was in August, and we were draining some rice fields that were here close to our business. And I asked them, I said, you see this water coming out of this field that's in the ditch, and it was flowing water, so, it was at a pretty good pace. I said, where do you think that water will end up? And the immediate response that I expected was, well, in the Gulf of Mexico. That's where all the runoff ends up. And I said, no. And I showed them, I said, it'll go down this ditch to a bayou, and that will flow south of town. And I will tell you that we have a farm 6 miles south of town that water will never hit, because there will be some farmer between right here and our farm that will pick that water up and have it in a reservoir for his use next year.
Wow.
I said, you all never think about the practical applications of the things you do. Mm-hmm. And now you're trying to come back and regulate so that we have to put strips next to our ditches to take the chemicals out of the water. I said, there's no chemicals in this water.
Yeah. That's amazing. It really just goes to show you that you're you're locally, the land, your industry, and these guys have no clue. I've heard of other stories, the game and fish. I think my family member was telling me they were trying to, put a dam somewhere in the Big Lake area, and the locals, they were like, well, you'll never be able to put a dam there because, the water flows this way, and and sure enough, they try to put a dam there, and then everybody's laughing at them when the dam fails, just like they told them it would, Right. It just kind of goes to show you've got this top-down approach, and they think they know what's best for us, and yet it really just makes industry suffer in the end. And I got to tell you, Mr. Stratton, this is one of the best small business spotlights we've ever done, and a lot of them end up with the business owners talking about how the government's actually making things harder, not easier. And we have that confirmed, one more time here, and I appreciate you being on the program. I really do.
Well, it's my pleasure, Paul. I appreciate what you do, letting people know the things that we have to deal with today. And one other comment I'll make is we were sitting around discussing these different aspects this afternoon, and each one of our people were talking about giving their input and the things that they have to deal with. And, it came to the point, I thought, why are we doing this? When Dad entered business, it was on a very small scale. He didn't have all these rules and regulations, yet he provided a service to his customer. And here we are, 69 years later, with all of these things that not only are required for us, if we don't follow them to the T, we're concerned today about being out of compliance on something, getting bad PR, not doing things right. I understand why there's not the numbers of family businesses there used to be.
Wow. I think that says it all.
It takes a big company that has the resources dedicated to these areas. I mean, we have to wear so many hats today in the management of business that we really don't get to focus on the reason we're here. And that's a disservice to our customer.
Mr. Wendell Stratton from Stratton Seed Company in Stuttgart. We appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul.
All right.